going on, guys? Welcome back to Pure Evil MMA. I'm your host, as always, Evil Eddie. We got a special guest joining us here today. We got Christian Schmidt, the ring announcer, joining us in the building. What's going on today?
Oh, man, just thrilled to be here. I just want to say thanks so much for inviting me on Pure Evil MMA. Eddie, it's great to be here. I'm really excited to talk about whatever you have prepared for me. And let's get it. Let's do it.
Well, man, being a ring announcer is like one thing I've always wanted to get myself into. Like growing up, I've always wanted to be something within entertainment, something within, wrestling, mixed martial arts. And ring announce always seemed like a good avenue. What led you to this point? Because you don't just wake up and you get a phone call to say, come in. Where did this spark start as a young kid? Like, what do you remember where you saw in a moment that changed your life, that you knew this was going to be the dream? This was going to be what you want to do, no matter what anyone else said. If you did it, it was going to make you happy. What was that moment for you?
Well, I mean, just like what you said, I mean, kind of like Lupe Contreras, a ring announcer out of Houston, said once, I mean, we don't find the business finds us. There's so many few and far between opportunities to be a ring announcer. It somehow finds you in a way that you never thought. I never had aspirations. I never had dreams of being a ring announcer. I just never thought it was not something that interested me. It was just not something that.
Hold on a second here. I know what it was then. If you're scratching A, B, or C, and I got one option left, it was your voice, I'm guessing, right? That caught someone's attention?
It was kind of that. I used to host a TV show in San Antonio where I grew up.
Wow.
And we would have guests on our show. It was a cable TV show. And I interviewed Shawn Michaels, former WWF champion. And I got to go to a school at the time. And it was a really popular thing. And so I got to sit there and talk to him for a long time. And I loved wrestling. I loved MMA. I loved boxing. And so I would go to the shows where I would watch the guys that he trains. And one of the ring announcer there, Ray the Voice Aikens, he invited me to come along and be a part of the show, like as a manager. Still, no aspirations to be a ring announcer. And I got to know the guys, got to be in with the guys. I got to love the indie wrestling in the South Texas area. And then it started to be like the main announcer from whatever promotion I was at. They were like, well, Chris, instead of being a manager, we don't have an announcer. What you do it? And I'd be like, all right. And it went from there. It was like first show, second show, third show. Maybe you should be an announcer instead of a manager or commentator or whatever. And so it just kind of it came to me organically like that, and it always came natural to me to do it. And then from the indie wrestling scene, it grew to professional boxing, and then professional MMA as well.
Hold on, there's a lot to unpack there, boss, because what I'm hearing here, let me make sure everything's good. What I'm hearing here from you is that you got a chance to train with or see behind the scenes Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, he had a school called the Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy in downtown San Antonio, and he was training, future superstars like Bryan Danielson and the Brian Kendrick and Lance Cade, he and Rudy Boy Gonzalez, and one day, a TV show I did, I spoke to his lawyer, Skip McCormick, and I said, can I do an interview with Shawn? And believe it or not, I went down there, and I was there for like 4 hours. Shawn and I were just talking, my all-time most favorite wrestler, and then it kind of went from there. I saw the gym. It was nothing fancy. It was nothing high-tech. It was on top of this old Mexican restaurant. And it was like, I think, a former boxing gym, but it was nothing fancy, but it was the best form of training the wrestlers at the time. a lot of talented wrestlers came out of that, and that's when I got to know Sean. It was so exciting for me.
So let me
Sean,
ask you, in this moment right here, you are in the pinnacle of somebody that you grew up idolizing, right? Somebody that you kind of just put out on a whim, and now you're like in this world, something that you didn't really expect. And that's kind of what I've felt throughout my journalism career. Like, I'll go to events, I'll cover them, I'll meet some of the biggest stars, and I'll talk to them, but it doesn't feel the way I thought it would feel. It happens, and it's magical, and there's a lot of things that you would never think are going on in these gyms, like the hard work. Like, I watched Glow. It was on Netflix. It was about the young women coming up. I think Eddie Guerrero's uncle helped training them. The gorgeous ladies of wrestling. I don't know if you remember that. Back in the 80s. I interviewed a bunch of them, and hearing some of the stories from the actual Glow girls kind of reminds me of this and the whole underground wrestling life. Did that kind of, put you in the spotlight of, all right, let me try to dig my feet in here? Like, were you interested in doing that, or did it just really fall in your lap?
Well, kind of a little bit of both. Well, it fell in my lap because I mean, a lot of the wrestlers were nice to me because they wanted to get on my show. It was a cable TV show, and they were and I remember at the end of the interview, Shawn Michaels was saying, "If you don't mind, could you interview Bryan Danielson and Brian Kendrick and Lance Cade?" And it never happened. Just I don't know, it just never happened. And I'm like, oh man, I mean, they were nowhere near the stars they are,
Now,
especially Bryan Danielson. But yeah, that was so exciting to me. I mean, watching WWF ever since I was a little kid, and I still do watch it.
I've been getting back into it lately. Yeah. Actually, like, let me tell you a little bit, because I kind of run a similar line there with the whole wrestling thing. Like, when I was young, growing up, the reason I even got into being a journalist was because my dad's friend, he was a radio host on a big radio show around here, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm here in Connecticut, so the WWE, WWF is based out of Connecticut. I got the opportunity to stay home from school, come up with some questions to interview Stone Cold. And I remember that day, like, something changed. It's the excitement of it. And, like, I got to ask you, like, moving forward, you get into it, you get the opportunity. When was the first moment, like, you really felt the electricity, be like, oh, wow, I'm controlling the atmosphere around me with the things and the words that I'm saying? Like, they're getting ready for a chaotic moment. How do I embrace that and find the right words to fight, the right levels, the right, ways of saying things? Like, when did you actually start becoming kind of an artist with it?
It just happened organically. I mean, I would say time and time again, each indie wrestling show, I would get more comfortable and try to say the right words and the right things, learn what to say, what not to say. I had to learn not to make it about, myself or jokes or anything funny like that.
They do tell you what to and what not to say.
Yeah. Was I ever told that? Not really. If I said something, the promoter might pull me to the side and say, "Well, you say it like this. You say it's the Texas Heavyweight Championship, not this championship," or don't ask them to cheer for anything outside of wrestling. Like if there was a Spurs game on or a Cowboy, who's a Cowboy? Just to pump up the crowd, just make it about the wrestling. Make a focus on the wrestling.
So you actually learned while you were going, right?
Oh yeah, it's the same for all announcers, because I mean, a lot of times I get asked, "Did you go to announcing school or anything like that?" No, I didn't. Nobody does. It's kind of one of those things that you learn as you go, and you gotta be willing to learn as you go, and understand you got to make the participants and the promotion look as glamorous as possible.
How do you do that? Like, what's the formula that you have come up with that, or what you have understood? Like, do you watch any, like, footage, or do you watch, like, any kind of in-depth way about, like, the human emotion and how to cause a riot within the soul? Or, like, where does your inspiration come from? What you say and how you do it, because it's an art, you know.
I study and watch announcers in wrestling, MMA, boxing, in different countries, in different languages, and I see what doesn't and what does work. Because, I mean, just like I heard the greatest announcer of all time, Michael Buffer, in an interview a couple years ago, he said he stays up late at night with a pen and a pad. The greatest of all time. And he says, I don't copy anybody, but I watch. I watch what this works and what this doesn't work. Oh, you got it right there.
I got my pen and pad all the time. All the time.
Awesome. And so my jaw hit the floor because we're conditioned to thinking Michael Buffer was born with a tuxedo and a mic in his hand, and he was flawless ever since he came out of the womb, and that doesn't happen. And to know that he still is studying shows that's why he is the greatest. And I am proud to say that I still study. I still make mistakes every time I put on my tuxedo. And I always will make mistakes, but I will grow from those mistakes, and I will learn, and I will get better each time.
Now, you actually brought out something really interesting in there, because one of my favorite bands, Tool, they would go to like little tribes in the middle of nowhere to kind of study their form of music and what rises their soul, what kind of tempos, beats, noises. You brought up checking out ring announcers overseas, so you're not even understanding what they're saying, but how they're saying it, man. Like that's definitely some good research. And in India, man, I've seen some wrestling matches over there, man. It's beyond soul tingling over there for some of the shows, because the crowd really adds an element to it. Do you find that at a lot of your shows as well? Like when the crowd's there and the crowd's electric, and then sometimes you find a crowd that's really quiet and timid. How do you deal with something like that with the knowledge that you have, knowing that your voice, your tone, the tempo, and all this will work into preparing them for what's about to come?
Now, that is a really, really, really good question. To answer part A, if they're a hot crowd, which is obviously what I prefer, I love every second of it, and it makes my job, myself, and the promotion look so much better. Now, if they are not a hot crowd, I act like they are a hot crowd, and I don't recognize it or let it get to me, because once you start saying something like, come on, guys, come on, be a little bit more enthusiastic, or joking with them, and you show some annoyance, there's people in the crowd drinking.
Yeah.
And when they see a guy annoyed or kind of mad, it spirals downward, where they just start saying nasty things or doing it. So to answer part B, what do I do when it's not a hot crowd or frustrated crowd? I just act like it is. And either it will get to be a more excited crowd or enthusiastic crowd, or it won't. But either way, I mean, it's better to just smile, take some deep breaths, talk, and act like everything is okay.
Now, I've been at like Muay Thai shows, right? Where it's some of the most exciting fights, and the crowd, sometimes for the love of the sport, are actually really quiet during the fight, but there's chaos all around. What kind of fights have you been covering? You started with wrestling, but then you start seeing these other cultures and ways that crowds have a kind of real blood and flesh respect for it, that like I almost felt like there was a culture shock when I went to my first Muay Thai event, because I was expecting chaos everywhere, but really it was all before and during it. You could hear a pin drop. What kind of martial arts and what kind of events, even outside of fighting, have you been into, and what's been the most interesting to you?
Wow, that might be hard. I mean, the professional wrestling style, obviously, the professional boxing style, all over the United States, MMA, you know, It's just those three. I have not yet announced um, Muay Thai. I've done bare knuckle
Oh,
once, and that's harsh, very harsh.
so bare knuckle has been such a huge thing. What was that experience like?
I don't even know if I should say this, but it was in Albuquerque. It was one of the fights that night, and I just wanted it to get over with. The sound of this on it's just not my thing, at least right now. I know it's really gotten. I mean, it's been 5 years now. It's been kind of a thing, and it's growing. As to if it's going to stay, as to if it's going to evolve like MMA did in the mid '90s at UFC. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, it's very, very, very brutal.
Would you
It's
say this was, a moment in your career as a ring announcer that profoundly affected you on a personal level, whether it was like, a triumph or a tragedy or something in between? Like, this was a big moment that kind of drew a line in between uh, the entertainment and the rawness and brutality that this sport really brings. Did it leave you with more respect for the fighters, or did it leave you kind of shooken up? This had to be that moment for you, though, right?
it it ended pretty soon, and I was just relieved because you were hearing these smacks on the face, and I mean I love boxing, I love MMA, but the dangerous part about bare knuckle is obviously you're not wearing any gloves, and the human face is not made to be hit. And I mean, I know we're only 5 years into it, but these guys cannot have a long career. We've seen what happened. Boxing is we've seen what happened there, and that's pretty brutal. But they have gloves. When you have bare knuckles, it's just kind of maybe one day I'll change.
So
But I'm just like, ugh.
I felt the same way, man. I've been at fights where I felt really shooken up cage side, like head kick knockouts and stuff like that. When you see it in front of you and you hear the collisions and you see the actual look in somebody's eyes and not on television, and you're sitting next to the families, the girlfriends of these people, it changes something with how you look at it all.
Yeah, like Holloway and Gaethje.
I interviewed Justin Gaethje years ago, and backstage at Foxwoods Casino, man, and he's been one of these fighters that has always been at the helm of chaos and just electrifying atmosphere. But what I wanted to say is, I've been in those moments that you have, and it really shook me up and kind of made me sick and wanted to look deeper into it. And I actually did as a journalist. During the time I was doing a show with Ultimate Fighter Season 10's first round pick for Team Rashad Evans, James McSweeney. Season we had Roy Nelson, Brandon Schaub, Kimbo Slice, Justin Wren, just huge stars that season. Matt Mitrione, just huge stars. And I asked him this question. What he said actually shocked me just as much. He said, there's actually more damage that you get from a 12-ounce or 16-ounce glove that happens deeper within that actually affects the brain. The bare knuckle is more on the outside. And we've seen brutal knockouts in bare knuckle where it leaves awful, disgusting scars. But he says when it comes down to it in CTE, what the research has shown is the bare knuckle is actually safer. Does that kind of shock you?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it does. I've heard that argument, but I don't really know if because I've heard doctors say bare knuckles. I'm hearing both. I don't. I mean, yeah. To answer your question, yeah. I mean, but I'm wondering if how true that is. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's 100% accurate or if they're just saying that or it's healthier or I don't know, man. But the thing about it is we're only 5 years into bare knuckle, and so we're going to see the long-term effects soon. I mean, in other words, we can't interview a guy that retired 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25, like we can in boxing, and almost well, kind of UFC and MMA now, kind of.
A lot of the people signing to bare knuckle are also a lot of these older retired fighters as well too.
It's paying pretty good. I've had personal conversations with fighters, and they're saying it's paying really good. So that Feldman, and they're getting money, definitely getting money for it. So I mean, like the old cliche, money talks. Money talks.
Definitely does. I like what you said though about the long-term effects, because it's something that we're all interested in. We're seeing the results of CTE here and there, but it's just it's really disturbing when you talk to some of these older fighters, and you even see like in situations in boxing, it didn't happen that long ago. A young kid had a huge future in front of him, and he got hit with a dirty shot, and he became paralyzed afterwards from that situation. It's awful. We've seen deaths in the ring. It's brutal, man. So you're kind of sticking more towards the wrestling side of things. Is that like kind of where you feel is your future? Like, where do you want your future headed here with that? But bare knuckle is something you want to stay away from, right?
Well, I mean, like I said, that can always change. Wrestling, I don't do that much anymore. Wrestling, unfortunately, it pays a lot less. I mean, I love it. It's fun, but it pays a lot less. My main thing, my bread and butter is professional boxing. I mean, I live in Texas where it's heavily a boxing state, more than any of the combat sports. It's not like, the Deep South where it's Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida and Georgia. And that's MMA country. Louisiana, they're huge into MMA. Up in the kind of the Midwest, Iowa, maybe even a little bit Minnesota, even Illinois. They're really passionate about MMA in those states, but Texas is definitely a boxing state, and I have more opportunities. I'm really blessed to have the opportunities that are within usually driving distance for me. MMA in Texas is not as hot as it I wish it was.
So you're like going around Hidalgo. I've seen you done stuff on like ESPN Knockout. What are some of the like favorite opportunities that you've gotten this far? And like, how often are you doing this? And do you want to be big time? Because there's a lot of situations that come up, like I just said, the ESPN situation. Like,
I love doing this. It's my passion. There's nothing I enjoy doing more professionally than announcing professional.
San Antonio, Hidalgo, right? Like,
where have I been? All over the state of Texas. I've announced in 13 different states.
Wow.
I've announced in a U.S. territory, in the U.S. Virgin Islands for Zab Judah, his promotion out there. Several places, yeah.
You say Zab?
Yeah.
My boy Slap for Cash knows him actually very well. That's great. That's the second time I've heard that name on this podcast. I don't know who he is.
Yeah, Zab Judah. He's originally out of Brooklyn. Fantastic lightweight, middleweight. Fought several great fighters. Fought Floyd Mayweather Jr., Walter Maitisi, Corey Spinks, several top level. Verno Phillips. I mean, he's from New York. Great guy. Him and his wife Dee Dee, great people. They had a promotion called Celebrity Championship Boxing, and I've worked for them. And so, for several influencers box, and so I did a pay-per-view for them out in the U.S. Virgin Islands not too long ago, and that was a blast. That was a lot of fun.
That's how then, because Slap for Cash fought with that company as well. I think against somebody from like some reality TV show. What a small world! It's what a small world. Now, the ESPN thing, like how does that like come towards you? Like these events I've seen, like covering Muay Thai and MMA and smaller promotions, being on UFC Fight Pass or some internet thing. Like, what's been your favorite situation that's come to you? Has it been the ESPN thing just for the name itself, or have some of the best ones been some of the smaller names that should really speak to a lot of people out there, especially in the local areas, whether in Texas or Connecticut, New York, that some of the local shows could be some of the best shows you've ever seen?
Well, obviously, title-wise, prestige-wise, announcing on ESPN3, it was Jose Chavez taking on Austin Trout. I mean, I had to say that was probably my biggest moment, just because it was ESPN and it felt really good. How does it come about? Well, the promoter that you work with comes to an agreement with the media outlet, whether it's a streaming service or it could be a television station. And the majority of us that do this in pro boxing, we don't get a major TV station. Now the streaming is kind of coming a little bit more prominent, a little bit easier, but it's hard to get on television as an announcer because you've got Jimmy Lennon Jr., you've got, Michael Buffer, Lupe Contreras, Dave Diamante out of New York, Jeremiah Gallegos. Those guys, those are like the best ones right there. And Thomas Trevor, they've got they're the best. And it's hard to get on TV because they're usually the main guys that have it. But yeah, I'd like to make it as big as I could. I'm constantly learning, like I said, and I'm going to be on television this Saturday on TV Box Azteca, which is a Mexican station in Laredo, Texas, and then the following Saturday, I'm also going to be on the same TV Azteca, Texas, in Brownsville, Texas, for another professional boxing show. I'm hoping more.
This what a crazy career, man, because all those different names that you're just bringing out right there. That's a busy schedule, especially for somebody with a little boy, right? You have a child now, so how does that change things up in your position? Obviously, you're not traveling that far, but the little one there, how's that affected your career along with COVID and all this? It's been crazy times, and you got a busy schedule. How do you juggle it?
Well, I'm blessed to have my wife, Rocio. She's a great mom, and what helps me is she takes care of our 3-year-old son and our 8-year-old daughter when I'm gone, and it's usually on the weekends. So she'll have that off too, and I'll leave on a Thursday night or early on a Friday morning, do the weigh-ins, do the night Saturday nights, and then come back Sunday. If I fly out of state, it might be a little bit longer, but my wife takes care of them.
What does she think about this whole thing that you're doing? If I had somebody that I was with, a partner, I feel like having a hobby is such a huge part, having your own time and space and, be able to be creative and get out there, because we all wake up in the morning and we gotta go through the ones, the A's, the C's, and dot the I's and do this and that. That's why, having a pen and paper and just being creative, making art, thumbnails like I did tonight and stuff, I live off of that. What does she think of everything that you do, man? Because it's really respectable and it's nice to see.
Oh, she's been very supportive. I'm very blessed to have her be supportive of it. She's gotten to become friends with a lot of the times the promotions with, the wives of the promoter or some of the female boxers have befriended her. And sometimes her family members, they'll all attend. Like this Saturday, April the 20th, Sam's Auto Arena in Laredo, Texas. She'll be there with family members.
That's a fun time.
And friends. So it's kind of like that group that you had, like when I was younger, and you see those same people and the same friends, and it feels good to
the click,
to feel
right? It's the click.
Yeah, click. Exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely healthy to have, man. But along with all of that, you are behind the scenes. There's people that are in the seats, and then there's people who are right there on stage, going backstage. And I'll say, man, over the years, I've done interviews as a gonzo journalist where I like to hear some of the nitty gritty stuff that people really don't usually hear or know what's going on. And especially some of these smaller promotions, even the bigger ones. There's been stuff backstage that people would be surprised about, whether it's funny or just crazy, or I've heard a lot of, money issues, this and that. Have you ever come across a situation so far in your career where you've kind of felt done dirty or felt like something was off? Or what's been the oddest moment in your career that left you feeling different than when you walked in that door?
Well, I mean, I've been blessed to get paid everything that has been owed me. And I mean, I can only worry about myself. As far as the way others are treated in the promotion, I do my best never to get involved in stuff like that because there's obviously two sides to every story. There are issues of a fighter comes in 2 or 3 pounds overweight, and then the other camp is not too happy about that. They have to get deducted money. They're not happy about that. Whether they have to pay the opponent X amount, they're not happy about that. The fighter might get told you were going to fight for a title, and then you're not able to fight for a title because of a loophole. I pride myself in, like, I'll hear it, but I do my damnedest to stay away from that stuff because it'll only blackball me. It'll only, sometimes when there's a fighter that his camp thinks that they won the fight and they come to me and, who do you think won? I just go, whoa. It's not going to make me popular with the promotion, the other side, the judges that did that. If I get a reputation for that, I mean, I really try to stay, quiet as far as, like, especially social media, because people have ruined their careers by speaking on stuff like that. So
easily, quick, quick.
I mean, yeah, and people need to think now. I mean, we're living in 2024, and when you get angry right now, unfortunately, with social media, you can go on a rant when you're in the heat of the moment compared to when we didn't have social media. We could calm down, and you can screenshot that. And I've had to talk to people before. You can't put this and then just think that it's going to go away or apologize. I mean, once it's out there, it's out there. So I really watch what I do.
That's actually a really smart thing to do, because I've seen, especially like a lot of the young kids, don't understand what's really consequential. A lot of people aren't understanding consequences anymore. But when you find yourself doing something that you respect and you take pride in, then you become a little more careful. When you have an apartment, you're paying bills, then you're a little bit more careful, or you put a little bit more extra effort in it. But I've seen some chaotic things over the years at weigh-ins like that too, man. It's entertaining to see. It's one of the most exciting things to be in the heat of a moment and going into an event. What's been one event that, like, you're really looking forward to covering, or a promotion, or what's like your favorite thing or upcoming fight or something that you have that you're actually looking forward to this year?
Well, I mean, right now it has to be about April 20th in Laredo, Texas, because there's so many equal matchups. And I mean, I currently reside in Laredo, and it's nice not to, have to leave. I mean, I do love to travel too, but sometimes it's nice to just, wake up in your own bed and head to the weigh-ins and do that. It has to be that right now because there's so many great matchups that the people of the Gateway City, people coming from Mexico and all over South Texas to see this event, and several of the guys I've known for years that are boxing and trainers. So I'd have to say definitely this Saturday. I mean, if you're going to ask me in the past, when I announced for Zab in the U.S. Virgin Islands, or when I announced for Michael Reyes in Boston, Massachusetts, or David Schumite in Detroit, Michigan, or Virgil Hill in Newtown, North Dakota, or Virgil Hill in San Diego, California, I mean, there's just so many where it's so equal. Hard to choose just one. Probably the U.S. Virgin Island one, because it was for Zab Judah, and I also my wife got to go with me as well, and so it was fun that we could also have a vacation.
That's awesome.
So yeah, El Salvador was a lot of fun too. But so many different ones. But I'd probably say that the number one would be U.S. Virgin Islands for Zab Judah and his wife Dee Dee.
Man, that's got to be so exciting, especially to bring your wife too, man. I gotta ask you like one more question. I got like 2 more questions for you here. UFC 300, like all these events that come out, are you up to date with everything that goes on? Are you like influenced? And were you not influenced before? Like, has this made you more of a fan? Like, do you tune in for every UFC fight now? Is it affected your career that way, where you're a fan of the art now?
Oh yeah, I loved it beforehand. I love it now. The only time I miss a big name MMA boxing event is if I'm working.
Yeah.
And I'm literally in the ring, and I can't really be in front of my television, or I'll watch it on my phone if I have to, but I don't. It's not the same, not television. I love it. I check the MMA sites, the boxing sites, wrestling sometimes, and then so many people I'm connected with on social media keep me up to date, and I learn so much through them. And so I'm never going to miss anything, because it's right there the first thing you wake up, and people are talking about certain things. But yeah, absolutely, I keep up with it very much.
So before we let you go, one of the most interesting things that I really want to get out of you is that morning when you wake up and you have the fight that night. You did the weigh-ins the day before. What are you doing for your vocals? Because, being in a band, singing all my life, doing the podcast, there's vocal things you need to eat. What's your day like leading up? And how do you control your levels up until the moment you need to actually use them?
Excellent question. What I do that day is, in the morning, I will have light fruit. I pour tea with some honey in it, some lemon, cough drops in it. I make a big concoction. And then I stretch my neck muscles out. I do several exercises. I hum really deeply. And then I will, actually, the night before, I will practice my in-ring introduction so it looks more natural. It's like you in a band, when you're up there singing, you're not reading the music, it float. Just same with, I try not to look at my note cards. So I practice. So I'm taking that hot tea and that honey down up until about noon. I usually get a light salad. I don't eat heavy. So I'll have as much energy as I can. Maybe have a little bit of light fruit later on. And then I carry a bag with me with all of everything I need, my notes. And then I've got throat spray, chapstick, and then I really exercise my neck, because it is true that when your neck is very loose, your vocal cords, you sound a lot more relaxed.
Oh, there you go. Whoa.
I'm talking to you in my announcer voice now, but you sound a lot more pleasant, and that's what I aim for. And I talk from my diaphragm, my stomach, not my chest, and especially not my nose, because early on in my career, I would get excited and say, "Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest is scheduled for 5." And I had to hear it, and I had to say, "Wow, I sound damn annoying." And so after seeing that on YouTube, I was like, "Oh, it was an MMA show in McAllen, Texas." And afterwards, I said, "Okay, for one, you got to slow down." So right now it's, "Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest is scheduled for 4 rounds in the lightweight division. Your third man in the ring, Mr. Luis Pavon." And so you speak a little bit slower, and you got to make sure that you're not speaking out your nose, because as human beings, we get so excited. That's why your voice races when you get excited. It doesn't get deeper. And all the greats, like Michael Buffer, "Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?" He's talking very calm. He's not getting too overly excited. But when I do my introductions, I'll talk kind of slow, and then I'll speed it up a little bit, not to where I get nasally. But when I need to emphasize some excitement, then I'll do it. But yeah, come fight day, or fight the night before, I'm practicing, actually the week before. And but the night prior, I just usually walk around the hotel, and I repeat, practice. Then in the morning, when I'm sipping on some fruits or something light, it'll be looking at my note cards. And then come fight night, and you see me up there in the ring, it flows off my tongue.
So it's really interesting that you brought that up. I heard you use something that sounded really fucking badass, man. Being where you are, especially, there's a lot of Mexican, there's a lot of culture where you have to pronounce things differently. You just had a name of a Spanish fighter, and the way it came out of your mouth, man, there's definitely been a lot of practice there. Has that been a very difficult and interesting thing to learn along the way of how to pronounce different words that maybe, instead of Paris, it's Paris? You know what I mean? Like, instead of tanga, it's tango, or potato.
Yeah, another good question. Well, I mean, I speak Spanish fluently. My wife is from Mexico,
Wow,
and
awesome.
she doesn't speak English very well. And in Laredo, where I live, it's half and half, very predominantly spoken half and half. Now, but I'll tell you my secret to that. I'll have the perfect answer. At the weigh-ins, I will walk right up to the fighter. Maybe I won't know him or her, or maybe, and I will say, "Hi, I'm going to be announcing for you tomorrow." I stick my phone up and I say, "What color are your trunks?" They tell me. "Where are you from?" So I get the proper pronunciation. And can you please slowly pronounce your full name with a nickname if you have one? Because it could be, somebody could say my last name is Hernandez, but then they might want it pronounced Hernandez, or instead of Garcia. Um, yeah, the majority of the names are Hispanic names that I do. And so when they say it, and I'm reviewing my notes the previous night, I see exactly how it's pronounced. Or I'll see a name, like a Polish name or a Filipino name, or sometimes I've introduced Hawaiian fighters that yeah, um, I make for damn sure I talk to them. So I can understand exactly how they want to be pronounced and how to do it properly.
That's so interesting. One of the things I've really loved about this career that's really stuck with me and really actually has changed my life and my day to day and how I view people is how similar we really all are. We could all take a punch the same way another man can. We have so much more in common than we have different. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about this area of mixed martial arts and combat sports. It's the whole culture. You learn so much about the world as a whole. And it makes you really become humbled in a way where you realize we really are a lot closer than we are different out there.
I couldn't have said it any better. And I mean, going back to, I just want to tell one story about when I was in El Salvador this past December. I went down there for a professional show, but there was an amateur boxing gym that was having a show. And when I heard gym, I thought gym.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I went to a park, and they drove me to a park, and I got out, and I was standing next to this kind of round concrete top, and the amateur kids, all got out and they put placemats, they put posts, they set up ropes,
Yeah.
they set up a sound system, and they had a show, and they were so passionate about it.
Oh my
And
God.
I was like, whoa, this is awesome.
Just throw up shop.
They made their own gym in a park right by a basketball court. I was like, whoa.
It's like an episode of Little Rascals or something. Just throw it all together, you right?
And it looked pretty good. I never saw it. I thought I was going to a gym, but no. And I got really close with them, and they were very kind and very nice to me in El Salvador. And but it made me appreciate it. It was like, man, I could never imagine joining a gym and then seeing that. But it gave me so much respect for their culture, their passion. I mean, a lot of us in America, you tell kids to go set up a ring, you're gonna go get on their cell phones or their Nintendos or their whatever, and those kids that I saw were very passionate about doing it, and so yeah, it's stories like that, things that I get to see, that make the whole career worthwhile.
On that note, man, to tie all that off before we end it, one of the most beautiful things I saw last weekend for UFC 300 were two Chinese women getting the co-main event for UFC 300. I don't think people understood what a big deal that is for two Chinese women to get the co-main event for one of the biggest organizations in the world. Obviously, there's money involved and stuff like that, but for the women themselves to see how far they have come and the respect that they have gained to get that position as two Chinese women, when they were saying that afterwards, man, it made me just respect and look at the sport just with so much more love and dedication. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, man, because I've seen so much love and dedication and art that goes into it. And that's the kind of thing I want my listeners to hear and be around and get familiar with, because this is the beauty of it all, is not just night after night, but what we're actually doing. And, we're really paving a way for a lot of people to live much happier lives. And this has been such an uplifting thing for my soul every morning, get out of bed passionate about something. For you and your wife having this and the family to come out, man. I just want to thank the mixed martial arts and the entertainment industry for, allowing these opportunities out here and opportunities that people like you get and people like me get. It's just a beautiful thing and an amazing thing to be a part of.
Well, Eddie, I just want to say you do a great job. You asked me great questions. I can't thank you enough for me to be on your show. I mean, I know you've gotten some very impressive names like Brandon Allen. I mean, like all the other guys in the past. So for you to want me to come on your show is my privilege. And thank you once again. I recommend your show to anybody. I look forward to watching more episodes of yours. And if you need help or connections to get anybody in the future, I'll be happy to help you out.
Thank you so much. What we like to do at this point in the podcast is hand the imaginary microphone over to you. If you have any sponsors, shout outs, anything at all, the floor is now all yours.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me, Christian Schmidt, on Facebook. Really easy to find me there. On Instagram, it's going to be Christian Schmidt Announcer. And I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the action in the main attraction. So tell everybody in the city, tell everybody in the town that it's about to go down on Pure Evil MMA.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Thank you so much. I cannot wait to talk to you again. And we'll talk to you very soon. God bless.
Much love, Eddie.
All right, there we go. Christian Schmidt joining us there. What a way to end it too, guys. That was a lot of fun. That couldn't have been any better. Because one of the things I really was looking forward to is getting to understand the art of it all. I like seeing inside of the sport. The things that you don't get to see at home. Maybe situations that we don't appreciate as much. I really try to bring to light. I put a lot of effort into this, and Christian seemed like the perfect guy to have on for this episode to bring in a different look for some of the art outside of the hands and the feet, right? So what a pleasure to have him on. He's got an upcoming show. You guys heard it. Will be all down below here in the information. Remember, without evil, there's no purity. I'm Evil Eddie from Pure Evil MMA. White Knuckles CN. Without evil, there's no purity. Behave yourselves.